So, Utah Jazz picked up a crucial win tonight as far as standing go against the Phoenix Suns, and we've basically seen this Utah Jazz squad with Donovan Mitchell being their best player along with Rudy Gobert. Joe Ingles, who's out for the year, but he's been a part of this cast.
But they actually traded Joe, but he's out.
That's right. They did trade Joe to
though.
Portland. My bad. I forgot about that. You're right. But
because he's out for the year, that's why they traded him.
But Utah has basically been, they've added pieces over the years. Both Bogdan 1 year, Mike Conley another year. They haven't gotten past the second round, which only one team can win every year. But what is it that you think Utah's still missing? Like I said, they add pieces. They got Hassan Whiteside to come off the bench this year, so when you have to sit Rudy Gobert, what is it that Utah is missing to help them go to that next level?
I mean, honestly, Utah kind of has it, really. So now it's just a matter of, are your players good enough, in my opinion? And maybe that's just the easy answer out, but Donovan Mitchell is your consistent all-star, superstar. There's arguments around the league. Is for most people it's him or Devin Booker the best two in the league. Got some people who think Bradley Beal. That's usually the three. But who's the best two in the league? You can make arguments that Rudy Gobert is a top 4 center, top 5 center in the league, top 4 easily. You can say he's the best defensive center in the league, multiple defensive player of the years. You got a good coach in Quinn Snyder. I think they have solid play, like coming off the bench with Jordan Clarkson as a scorer. Like you said before, Hassan Whiteside filling in for what Gobert does. Rudy Gay for their small ball lineups. 3-and-D player in the starting lineup, and Royce O'Neal, a point guard that everybody likes, and Mike Conley. So it's like everybody's there. We just kind of went through their main player. Everybody's there, and Joe Ingles was a big part of that before he got hurt. And they moved over for him because I think he's about to be a free agent anyway. So, and he tore his ACL, so he's probably not playing till not even next season, but the season after because of when he hurt it or whatever. But I mean, it's really there, honestly. I just think it's time for players to elevate their game. You want to see Rudy Gobert enter the best center in the league conversation.
Right.
Donovan Mitchell to take the next step from the best 2 to one of the best players in the league. I think that's the main thing that's lacking. I mean, you can say that they need another, a 4 maybe would be nice, but with Bojan Bogdanovic, he kind of provides that. Also, what you need, that player that you can go to for ISO scoring, and then he just plays within the offense. Also, he'll go for 31 night. Then you got nights like today where he has 11, but he's doing other things or whatever. So I think it's kind of there for Utah. I'm gonna put it on their players and everybody that's already in the organization. Like see Quinn Snyder coach better. Not that he hasn't coached well, but coach better in those moments. See Mike Conley then play better and things like that, because the team is really there. Chemistry, playoff experience, smart basketball players, defense, offense. Star offensive wing and Donovan Mitchell. So it's kind of just there for everybody to kind of just live up to what they had. The best record in the league last year for a reason. They were getting rid of teams. They were destroying teams last year and just kind of ran out of gas in the playoffs. So it's like you got to take that consistency to the playoffs.
No, for sure. Then with that being said, I'm John W.
Fresh X.
And this is the Hoopers. This is Hoopers Hour on Nothing But Net Radio, presented to you by Dash Radio. And like I say, Utah picked up a big win today. Like I said, they've slid back in the standings from last year to this year. Like I say, they were
in first last year.
Had the best record in the league last year to being in 4th place this year. Like I said, they've got to the second round multiple times. Donovan Mitchell's rookie year last year, but it seems like they can never just take that next step. Of course, remember the epic, 7-game series against the Denver Nuggets in the first round, which they lost. But like you say, sometimes it's not about what you're missing. It's just about the players stepping up and playing better, the coaches coaching better, and just sometimes just things as simple as that.
Because I wouldn't be surprised though if they don't at least make the conference finals this year. Then they start moving these pieces around. So if you ask what they're missing from that perspective, if they don't make it this year, I think the first thing they probably try to do is upgrade the 3 or the 4, Royce O'Neal or Bogdanovic, where you move one of those to the bench, or you just move on and get a more of an all-star type player, maybe borderline all-star type player in that position. And then you always gonna get the conversation about is Rudy Gobert and Spider the best. As far as them being your best two players, they're your best two players, but they don't kind of play with each other or whatever. You don't really see a lot of actions with them because there's Rudy Gobert has his limitations offensively, but maybe that's something that could be explored. But that's where they need to step up. They need Rudy Gobert. He's never gonna be Jokic or Embiid offensively, but I always felt like he could do more. He could be more dominant in what he does. I mean, we've seen him do it slightly overseas with the France national team, where they go to him inside and you put a smaller player on him, he just straight up dunks on him. He'll do it occasionally here, but I just feel like we don't see what he does over here, and maybe that's what you need out of him, where he's just such a force or whatever, because you 7 foot. And, you're going to always have a limitation. I don't expect him to be dribbling and shoot step backs like Embiid or handle like Jokic or Bam or something like that. But it'd be nice if he had a little jump hook. You're at the rim, get good position right there, and you just get that consistent jump hook. Yeah, consistent jump hook. Both hands, left and right. That's what he should add to his game.
I even think even with the rim run coming off the picks, he could even be more dominant in that, creating more space for the shooters. I say he's already being on top of his sevens, but I don't think people even mention what they do. But his arms are
he's
stupid long.
Really long arms, and that's maybe where you use him and Mike Conley in more pick and roll action. So maybe that's on Quinn Snyder to be more creative offensively with Gobert or whatever. But I really think the pieces are there. They're one of those teams where they can make trades. You like Mike as your starting point guard. You obviously love Donovan as your starting two. You love Gobert as your center. So obviously maybe you could upgrade at the 3 and 4. But with those 3 players in mind, the 3 and the 4 are kind of what you want. Royce O'Neal just kind of cuts, open threes, and he'll take advantage when he got offensive possessions here or there. It's always nice to have that player like Bogdanovich, who he plays within the flow of the game, but those nights when he go off, you can lean on him. So it's really kind of there for Utah. They just got to play better.
No, for sure. The Boston Celtics, a shout out to us for talking about the Utah Jazz. I think that's the first time we talked about Utah this year.
Yeah, not no real details this year. We mentioned it, but not for real. We haven't talked about it for real.
The Boston Celtics are one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now. Mm-hmm. Picking themselves up out of the playing range to basically being in good playoff position at this moment. Of course, they've been playing great defense over the past, last time I checked, it was a 9-game win streak, I think, or 8 out of the 9.
Yeah, because they just lost, so that kind of ended their streak.
But they've been playing great defense.
They won today.
They won today.
Or they won last night. That was
the offense has been flowing great. And they already had some momentum surging, but then you get, a nice little break coming off an All-Star weekend and whatnot, basically get a week off. Do you think this is the best time for the Celtics to get rolling, honestly, with this so little games left in the season to where it's going to be hard for teams to catch them, but they'll be able to catch some teams in front of them?
Yeah, because the key for one was to get out of the play-in range, which they've done right now. They got a little bit of a cushion. I think there's 2 games between them and Toronto. Toronto's in 7th, and then about 3 games between them and Brooklyn. Brooklyn's in 8th. So they're more so looking at trying to catch the Cavs because they're about a game and a half behind them for 4th place or whatever. They all really, the Cavs, the Bucks, and Boston all have 36 wins right now.
Right.
And that really kind of puts you right behind, honestly, Philly, who's in 3rd. They got a good win today, is Sunday. They got a good win today against New York, but this is a good time to be catching a rhythm, good time to be surging, putting yourself in position. If I'm them, I want to keep winning because I wouldn't want Philly in the first round. If I could get 5th, somehow you can jump the Bucks and maybe Cleveland stays there.
Right.
I would want Cleveland is a team that I think teams respect in the East because you know what they could be defensively, but that's the matchup that you want in the first round. If I'm one of these teams, right now it's Cleveland and the Bucks in that 4-5 game. Right. But if I'm Boston, I would definitely want Cleveland first round more than Philly.
Right, because like I said, you think you can play off some of that inexperience they got there, and especially when they got some injuries late.
You're right.
Garland, Karis LeVert, Rondo all missed today Sunday's game. And going into the playoffs, that's the last thing you really want to be is being injured. And even though Cleveland's a young team, and of course, like you say, being a young team, a lot of people gonna say they got fresh legs, they should be ready to go. You still don't want those injuries, especially to your primary ball handlers on the team and decision makers and playmakers and scorers, and Garland and Karis LeVert, who they acquired at the trade deadline from Indiana. Do you think this is what we really see what Cleveland's made of? Of course, they've been good all season. I don't expect them to fall. I don't even expect them to fall into the play-in position, honestly. I think they can hold on to a top 6 seed. But do you think this is now where we see if Cleveland got it to finish the season out strong? And they won their last game. They won recently without Garland in the lineup and Karis LeVert and all those guys. But do you think, because this is the tough part of the season?
Yeah, you can definitely say this is where you can really see how they're going to deal with this adversity. You've been having a good year, and now it's just like making it to that finish line. They've been in the top 4 all year, so it would. I would hate to fall out, and then now you get in play-in territory or something like that, because it's only a few games back, and I'm on record saying I don't think Brooklyn's going to be in the play-in once KD comes back. So that means somebody has to fall out between the Bucks, Cleveland, and Boston. I think Philly, Chicago, and Miami are pretty safe in those top 3 spots. But like I say, Philly's only a game up on Cleveland. But this is where you fighting through these injuries. You fighting to get to the finish line, and this that's why the season's so long. It's a long season for a reason. Survival of the fittest, to see who can stay on top of their game. But long as you can have Garland finish the year strong, they'll be okay.
No, I definitely agree with that. And I also think Cleveland can hold on to that top 4 seed. I just think that how good they are defensively, and once you get Darius Garland in there to help make everybody's lives easier again, especially the big man with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, they'll be okay. Speaking of Brooklyn, they picked up a big, much-needed win last night against the Milwaukee Bucks. Kyrie going for 38 on 14 for 26 shooting, I think it was. Like I said, they'll be getting KD back soon. At some point, Ben Simmons is going to play. He's going to be out for a little while now for a strained back, I think it was.
Yeah, back. Yeah, some back tightness.
Like I said, if they get everybody back with enough games back and they can hold it together, because I think this supporting cast with the pieces they got in the Philly trade and then signing Goran Dragic, I think this team is a little better as far as supporting players go to survive a couple games than they were before the trade deadline. Do you think it's like I said, you don't think they're going to – you already said you're on record, they're not going to be in the play-in tournament. Do you think this team can be successful? Because we don't know when Ben Simmons is coming back. We know when KD is coming back. He's coming back in another week, I think it is. But how successful do you think this Brooklyn team can actually be once everybody is there?
Right, yeah, you can tell that they really wanted to win that game, not even just because it was the Bucks, but just because – you got to start rolling at some point and getting these wins, and they went through such a long, bad streak of losing those games or whatever. But I definitely think their team definitely the James Harden trade, even though it kind of sucks because you just think about what they put in to get in that trade, and people are going to obviously point to what they lost to get James Harden, but they got so much of exactly what they needed through that trade that it really was worth it. It makes you see why some people think sometimes you got to trade that type of player to kind of make your team better overall, and their team just seemed more balanced. It was so top heavy before, and once they add KD, not even counting Ben Simmons, but because even if they didn't get Ben Simmons in that trade, just adding Kyrie and KD like upgrades that team so much. The trade upgraded them so much more. Like Andre Drummond has been huge for them. He was coming off the bench for Philly, and he's still one of the best rebounders in the league. But like I watched the game yesterday, and then especially down the stretch, he just like grabbed a lot of important rebounds for them. I think he finished with 12 rebounds yesterday, and then obviously like you already missing some shooting with Joe Harris. We don't know if he's gonna play this year or whatever, and then to add Seth, who isn't just a shooter, but just how he can make plays off the dribble. Their team just seemed a lot more balanced. And then, like, you got Aldridge coming off the bench. This kind of let Cam Thomas get back into the role because though he played well when they were losing, he was able to get a lot of shots up and score. Wasn't leading the winners, so now he can kind of play in his role and contribute. He had those big night scoring sometimes, and then like yesterday, he didn't have a big night scoring, but he attacked the way they needed him to. So they're definitely in better position, even the games without Kyrie, because at least and there's no disrespect to their players, but they just got a more competent NBA team. Even when Kyrie's out there, it was just looking really bad. They were playing lineups of Brown and Edwards and Brembry with Blake, who, Blake got moved out to start lineup early in the year because he really wasn't providing them nothing. So a lot of people just, with that 11-game loss, it was just like, oh, they keep losing. But KD was gone, James was out, Kyrie played in some games he didn't. They were really bad, so they really upgraded their team where they can hold on for a few more games until they get KD back, which is going to be real soon.
No, for sure. Like I said, I think once they get KD back, that'll definitely be okay. And like I say, once you add Ben Simmons, whenever he comes back and play, I think it's a recipe for a good team that can make a run in the playoffs, honestly.
I think luckily for them, even though they said that Ben isn't necessarily practicing with them, he's just kind of doing workouts. The fact that, for one, he's a pass-first player, so he's going to fit with what they need. I don't think they're going to have any problem messing with him. But the fact that he's at practices alone kind of just building relationships with everybody. As long as they get some games and he doesn't just start playing the playoffs, I think they'll be all right. And I really think after they pass the Philly game, he'll be on the court.
No, surely.
That's just, this thing is what it is. I don't think he wants to play the Philly game. I don't think they want him to play the Philly game. Next time we'll see him in Philly is when they meet in the playoffs.
No, that makes sense.
Save it for then.
All right, so we're moving closer and closer to the season, which means everybody is getting their final MVP thoughts and narratives together. I'm not going to ask you what your MVP, who you got for MVP right now, because I'm pretty sure I asked you that pretty recently. It's probably no different. But the consensus over the last couple weeks, have basically been Giannis, Embiid, and Jokic, even though NBA Twitter likes to throw out there that there's a media bias against foreign-born players, which, when you think about it, doesn't make any sense because those are the three leading MVP candidates. But I come here to say this, and I also tweeted this, and I just think it's kind of crazy when you think about that he isn't getting more MVP considerations, and that's DeMar DeRozan. And even Ja Morant, who they played last night, the Memphis Grizzlies, and Grizzlies came out with a close win. Ja going off, having a crazy night, getting the win. But DeMar DeRozan has put up, despite what those other three players have been doing, he's had an MVP season for any other year. Even this year, like, he's basically been number one in clutch points, fourth quarter points. I think what he's doing, 28-7-7, 28-6-6, high efficiency. He's hit a couple game winners. Bulls basically have been in the top three all year. I think you said something about it on Twitter. I might be wrong, but why isn't DeMar getting more MVP considerations, honestly? Like, he's definitely going to finish. Everybody has him in the top five, but nobody realistically think he has a chance to win it, which I think is totally insane.
I think it's mainly because people didn't view DeMar as an MVP player. So since he's been around long enough where you can't just become that. That's just literally what I think it is. And that's not to say that I think that he should win it, but that's just my whole thoughts of why the conversation isn't over with such and such games left. I mean, the Bulls have a chance to finish at the top of the East. He's averaging 28 over the last 12. He averaging like 38.
He broke the traveling record of 30 plus points on 50% shooting, I think it was.
Right, like I don't get why he wouldn't be. I'm on Basketball Reference right now, and their MVP tracker has Jokic at 40%, Giannis 22%, Embiid 12%, and fourth is Chris Paul. Next is Steph Curry, and it's like this is just one outlet, but people have tried to avoid Ja and DeMar because they weren't necessarily supposed to be there. Jokic won MVP last year, so he was going to be in conversation. Some think Giannis is the best player in the league. He has 2 MVPs, so he's supposed to be there. Embiid probably would have won it last year if he didn't get hurt at the end of the season, and that kind of just locked it up for Jokic, so he's supposed to be in that conversation. But DeMar got traded because he was the player that couldn't get over the top, and Kawhi was the MVP. And then he kind of was low-key into San Antonio for a couple years, didn't make the All-Star team, so he's not supposed to be there. Ja is in his third year. Third year players aren't supposed to win MVP, just like what Derrick Rose was like, why not me? So people are trying to force some people, not everybody, but I've seen people say he should be the most improved player instead of giving him realistic MVP conversation when he's averaging the numbers that you want to average. Memphis is winning how you want them to win. I said in December, I think, when Memphis was like 5th, I was like, if they finish top 3, you got to give him real MVP conversation. Not that he should win it, but you have to really look at his case. And they're top 3. They're 1 win behind Golden State. So they're about 2.5 games behind them because they played some more games than them or whatever. But those 2 players in particular weren't supposed to be there. They're in. If you look up all the stats, they're in top 5 for the numbers that you want, whether it's advanced or regular stats, scoring, assists, whatever, all the numbers. So they have the numbers. Now it's just a matter of picking the player that you want. And I know for sure I said on Twitter that, with it being MVP, most valuable player, people always just lock in on that and not realizing it's a year-to-year award. Anybody can win MVP. If CJ McCollum come out next year, he averages 35. The Pelicans finish top 3. He should be in the MVP conversation. It don't matter if it's his first All-Star game, but because you don't expect him to do that, they'll just say you most improved. So I saw somebody, I still can't remember who said it. It was Twitter. I think it was a podcast. It probably was JJ Redick said it. Maybe they should just change it to the Player of the Year award so people can stop just being so difficult about it. Anybody could be in a conversation, and I don't think it's over because it's tight. So having your MVP wrapped up now it's 25 games left. It's gonna come down to those last 10 games.
Like they do, Baxter does every year. Like I said, I just think.
Every once in a while, somebody runs away with it. Warriors win 73 games. He run away with it. Westbrook gets hurt. KD averages 35 while he's out. It happens occasionally. LeBron's the second year in Miami, they go on a 30-game win streak almost. It's like we know who the MVP is, but these last couple years, it can go to anybody.
Which is how it should be, because I say it's a year-to-year award. You can't come in with a built-in narrative. You got to let the narrative write itself and play itself out.
Yeah, but people start playing. Man, if you take him off of this team, we can't play that game. Because now you're just playing what ifs. You got to look at what's in front of you and what we're looking at. Like I can acknowledge Michael Porter getting hurt because you didn't expect that to happen for Jokic's case, but Jamal Murray being out don't really matter to me because we knew we weren't going to see Jamal Murray, so you prepared this season to play without Jamal Murray. Embiid has the numbers, but you can't be upset with somebody saying, he's missed such and such games, so he needs to play out the season strong. Giannis missed some games this year, and as well as the Bucks are playing, they are in 5th place in the East, so it's like they've turned it up at moments, but the Bucks have gotten the past this year to play lackluster at times because they're the defending champions, and if they haven't been playing lackluster, why are they in 5th place? So it's clearly they haven't just been razor sharp all year. They haven't been in first place all season. Look it up. Go back a month and look at the standings. 2 months. They haven't been in first place all year. So
they've barely been top 3 all year.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, you can have conversation about anybody for MVP.
No, for sure. Just real quick, we can come back to it. We have enough time at the end of the show, but I seen a report from I saw it on Twitter. I can't remember who the source was, but Legion Hoops tweeted that Michael Porter Jr. could be back as soon as the next couple weeks. Jamal Murray right after that. I wasn't expecting either one of them to come back, but if they can come back and they can be ready to play in any kind of game shape for the playoffs, they can definitely help add to what Jokic is doing this year for that team.
Yeah, I knew Jamal was coming back, and then especially because I just saw something about him. He was on All the Smoke about a month ago. All the Smoke with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, and then I just saw something else on Twitter about him getting ready, and he'd be back like March. But I thought Porter was. I thought they shut him down for the year. Like, got some credit, some tax break credits as your reserves, but I guess not. Which, I mean, that'd be helpful if you get him back. Denver is kind of, they're right there. They're tied with Dallas. Dallas got the win tonight, so that gets that nudges them like a half game up. But they're right there with Dallas for that 5th seed. So yeah, that's
right. So, like I said, you just brought up Ja a minute ago for a player who nobody's speaking of as far as MVP considerations go. But I don't want to talk about Ja real quick. I want to talk about Memphis and how quickly they've basically rebuilt this team. Of course, we remember a couple years ago they traded Marc Gasol to Toronto. They traded Mike Conley to Utah. Before that, they let Zach Randolph go on free agency. They basically let all the veterans go who was keeping them as far as playoffs go, keeping them in the playoffs. Players who had been all-stars, all-NBA, all-defense for them. And I think once you trade those players and let players like that go, you kind of expect it to be not necessarily a long rebuild, but I don't think you'd expect to be in the top 3 basically 2 years later, because they would have traded Marc Gasol, but 4 years ago, 3 years ago. This is Ja 30, so 4 years ago. Mike Conley, basically in that same timeline. Of course, it started off, you draft Jaren Jackson while Mike Conley and Marc Gasol is still here. Draft John Morant, Brandon Clark, Dylan Brooks, Zaire Williams, who they've been flourishing that offense, doing some, spot up shooting, rim running, just so you get comfortable as an young NBA player. Desmond Bane is a good draft find. Were you expecting Memphis to be as good this quickly after all that? I don't think people realize that Memphis went into a rebuild, honestly, because of how successful they've been over the past 3 seasons, honestly.
Yeah, I think the keys have been Jaren Jackson being healthy this year, and then just getting Ja. Like I said, when they drafted Ja, watching him play that first year, that it's not surprising that they was winning just because of how he led the team, how he talked to the players on the court. So he's honestly been the biggest difference for me, and he's had them competing every year since they put him out there, from playing the first time and then actually making it last year, and then they're at this year. So Ja's been the main force, and that's how he's a player here to stay.
No, for sure. Like I say, I don't think anybody.
They've done good. You got to acknowledge the great draft, and also too just overall, because Bane was a good find. Zaire, Brandon Clark. So these are a lot of good players that they've picked up that just know how to play basketball.
Even the free agency moves they made, bringing Kyle Anderson, Tyus Jones has been. I think it's a lot. It's a lot of people who are high on Tyus Jones going into Duke, coming out of Duke. But I think a lot of people could say Tyus Jones has been a really solid back, even filling in as a starter when needed for Ja.
Steven Adams,
even Valanciunas last year for him, who they flipped for Steven Adams this year and this past off season. So Memphis has done a really good job coaching. They nailed coaching and everything. Do you see any other team that's kind of in that same position that you think can make a Memphis type role maybe next year?
The closest to Memphis is probably Cleveland. It's probably Cleveland. They got these players that they've drafted. Some good trades, getting LeVert, Jared Allen in that trade last year, signing, marketing, drafting Mobley, drafting Garland, even drafting Colin Sexton, and we'll see what happens with him this offseason. But Cleveland would be, and they're already kind of making that jump, being in 4th place this year. Mm-hmm. But as far as taking them serious in the East next year, trying to be top 3, I would say Cleveland, probably Cleveland.
Cleveland's good, but I was also thinking Minnesota, especially with Minnesota already And
Yeah,
they
Minnesota
sit there and
did,
set them play this year. I think they're like 3.5 games back from the sixth spot. They probably won't get that, but they've definitely been definitely been that team, especially after drafting Anthony Edwards last year and bringing in D'Angelo Russell in the middle of the season before that. So I think Minnesota is one of those teams that can make that rise as well. All right, so we haven't spoken much on the other half of that Philly-Brooklyn trade, which is James Harden, who's played his first two games the past couple games. First game he had 27, 12, and 8. Second game had 29, 16, and 10. Of course, I think the first game him, Embiid, Tyrese Maxey combined for 89, and the second game that same trio went for 87 combined. Were you expecting that to be their big three, or did you think Tobias Harris would be more involved in that?
Tobias Harris will be more involved in the long run, but initially, one of the first things that I saw Doc say, was he usually doesn't stagger his minutes, but he planned on staggering the minutes of those four. So I figured Tyrese was going to play a big role. I mean, they've been high on him from the beginning. And he's really just shining because he's still handling the ball at times, but playing off the ball, he's not trying to worry about making the decisions for the whole team anymore. He just gets to play his game. He just get to go while James runs the team, and they still play through Embiid a lot. But Tyrese has stepped up. I do think they have to, which they will, but they just got to find more ways of where Tobias kind of fits, because Tobias is going to play a big role as far as we're getting this team over the top. But I think they'll find more shots for him, because Maxey, it's not even necessarily that they run plays for Maxey. Maxey gets a lot of stuff in transition, and then when he just gets those open shots, and he's gonna put them when he's open. So Tobias has to just find his spots, and they're gonna use him as a scorer, because he's gonna have those nights where he's rolling, and they're gonna find him.
No, sure. I seen somebody on Twitter, I can find a tweet real quick, said we got the new age Shaq and Kobe with Embiid and James Harden.
Yeah, because that's what it was a few people that tweeted that when the trade first happened, and you had the people that was on the side of it, and you had some people that just immediately dismissed it and was like, Shaq and Kobe won the championship. I mean, they had to play together first to win the championship. So
Absolutely.
Dismissing them because they haven't won a championship is irrelevant, because Shaq and Kobe didn't come into that relationship with championships. But it's not crazy to think, which they look really good together. If you watch today or the first game, they clearly, like, from instantly, I'm gonna keep saluting Joel, because you could just see that he's a sponge to be around great basketball players. They traded for James. He instantly is on the court working out with him. He did the same thing when Jimmy Butler was there. He thinks highly of all-star basketball players. He wants to get better.
Right.
And you could tell that James respects Embiid's game, and maybe he respects that about Embiid, that he immediately comes work out with him. Clearly he's been picking his brain or whatever, but James is a former MVP. Embiid was in MVP conversations last year. Good chance to win it this year. They can have the opportunity to win a championship because they look really good together. Some people was worried about, James flourishes in the pick and roll. Embiid hasn't wanted to do that. I've seen Embiid do a lot of pick and rolls in these two games. I've seen James motivated on defense, where he's been active. He's talking to the team a lot, like he's really trying to run the team or whatever. So they have a chance to be in that conversation where they're dominant, because obviously James is getting older, and as healthy as Embiid has showed us that he is the last couple of years, we're always gonna wonder, when does you just always have in the back of your mind to see, is his body gonna break down? So you want to take advantage of how good he is. You can also tell that Philly's playing with urgency. That's why James immediately, he came in there in shape. Doc said he came in there in great shape. He looks like he's in great shape. He got a lot of bounce to him right now. You can tell they're playing with urgency, that even though we just made this trade, we want to try and win this year and build the habits of trying to go into next year.
No, yeah, I feel that makes sense. But no, yeah, I think they're gonna finish off the season strong, and they're gonna be a good team. It is a good mix. I just think, and like I say, championships aside, I just think just the comparisons like that early on, because people just gonna come back and fry them if Philly fails in the playoffs, which Shaq and Kobe had to do early in their careers together as well.
Right.
But
they're gonna as soon as they fail, it don't work. They're gonna instantly throw it in their face. But if it works, they're gonna instantly say that they are that. So you just gotta wait and see and let them develop. They're obviously two different. They're four different type of players. Embiid is a different type of center than Shaq is. James Harden is a different type of guard than Kobe was or whatever, but the potential is there for them to do a lot of winning.
No, yeah, for sure. So, and shout out to Doc saying he's going to try something different with his lineups because clearly that's not something he...
Right, yeah.
That's something he's even admitting to say that's not something he do.
Yeah, he said he's never staggered minutes before like that. I mean, but it makes sense to do because all he's saying is at all times he's going to have, basically two are going to be on court, but worst case scenario, at all times one of them will be on the court. So it makes sense to always do, but watching them today, like he did a lot of lineups where they will all be out there, and then he went with lineups where it would be Maxey and Embiid and Tobias, and then I saw a lot of like James Harden, Tobias, and Maxey out there too. So yeah, he was kind of switching it up.
No, for sure. So like I said, hopefully this, maybe this be the team and the formula that helps Philly kind of finally gets over, so we can end the process jokes because they still be out there sometimes.
Yeah, Paul Millsap looked good for them too.
I forgot Paul Millsap.
Yeah, he looked good out there for them too. He took advantage of some buckets. They're gonna need Shake. I know Shake is trying to get back into it, but Shake is gonna have to try and he's clearly getting back in shape. But if they can get something out of Shake as a backup guard, I think that'll go a long way for this team.
Nah, for sure. Just real quick, what's the news with Kendrick Nunn? Like, I don't even won't have to get into. I know you don't know. You're not a doctor. You don't work for LA, but I feel like they said something maybe around Christmas time, but they haven't said anything since. Which means I'm guessing they probably either slowly working him into the lineup, or he's probably not going to play this year.
Right. I'm still it's still saying that there's no timetable for him to come back
this year.
Right. And apparently looking at I'm on Basketball Reference, and it says that he suffered a setback when he was ramping up his activity on his knee. So I don't think we're gonna see him this year.
Yeah, that sucks. Just had to mention that real quick because, like I said, it's just every now and then, every couple of weeks, somebody bring that up because it's like he hasn't played at all this year, and I know a lot of people thought he was going to be a big factor on this Lakers team, honestly. I know I did, for one.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to see him this year. I definitely thought he was going to have a chance to be a starter for this team.
Right. But I want to get back to the Nuggets real quick. Like I said, I brought up a little while ago on the show. MPJ and Jamal Murray are both expected to be making their returns real soon. And like Denver's in 6th place right now, fighting with Dallas and Utah for that 4-5 spot, where they're all pretty tightly wounded up in the West. Of course, we know what they can do if they can come back, and if both of them are even 80%, we think Denver could be a very dangerous team that could probably make a deep playoff run, conference finals at the minimum, maybe second round. Probably second round at the minimum, maybe a final run, depending on how healthy and in shape everybody is. But to know that you're getting your next 2 best players back, your 2 of your best scorers back, with the way Jokic has been playing this year, even though he's not a selfish player, do you think it's going to be hard to kind of work them back into the lineup? Especially, like, say, you haven't had Jamal Murray all year, so you've been game planning and practicing without him running with your 1s or your 2s. But do you think it's going to be hard for Mike Malone to kind of associate them back in the offense to where it's not boggling things up or slowing the offense down in any way for him?
I think it shouldn't be because they're good players that can play. Like Michael Porter gets a lot of his offense within the offense because he's such a good, efficient shooter. That's kind of was his thing last year.
Right.
The highest true shooting percentage since like Wilt on 19 or more points per game, something like that. And then Jamal Murray just take the load off with him being able to handle the ball, and you bring that back in. So I think that just gives the Nuggets a chance to go, and then getting them back in March, you get to play a few games. Get some wind under them, so then you can really make a run in the playoffs. No,
yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like I said, especially with Michael Porter, because his whole thing is probably going more than anything provide some spot up shooting at the most, especially with with his back, and they know that'd probably be the best option. And that's honestly what he did last year when he was putting up those great shooting numbers. He was mostly a spot up shooter for the most part. Like say Jamal Murray, because he is the next ball handler and scorer for you. So I think it's not going to be difficult, but I think that's where you're going to kind of try to just find his spots. It's going to be trying to find his spots because I think it's going to be different from a Clay who's more of a catch and shooter. Even early in his career, he was better. He was the better catch and shoot player.
Yeah, but outside of Jokic, there's nobody to take the ball out of his hands. So
that's also true. And just speaking of players coming back, because I don't think haven't heard anything about it for real. But you expecting Kawhi back this year at any point? Because Clippers are still in playing range to where they can probably make a run for the playoffs. Do you expect Kawhi back?
I think it's a matter of do the Clippers want to bring him back? If Kawhi has a chance to play, I think he'll play. And I think he should play, but I think with Paul George potentially being shut down, I don't know if he's officially been shut down. I would say no. But if it's an opportunity for Paul George to come back, then I would say Kawhi will come back. But if you're not going to get Paul George back, it'll be no reason for Kawhi to come back.
Nah, I feel you, because if you're not getting Paul George back, you're definitely not making a run. And you don't just want Kawhi to come back just playing the play-in where you probably don't have a chance to make a deep run in the playoffs, honestly.
Right, but it is reported he's ahead in his rehab schedule, Kawhi that is, so he has an opportunity to come back. Okay. But if you're not getting Paul George back, I don't think he will come back. You go ahead and, they don't have the draft picks, so that's where it gets tricky because you don't got your draft picks, so it's not like you're just playing for some assets that you could get, but but without Paul George, I don't see them bringing him back.
No, for surely. So recently, I'm pretty sure you've seen it by now or heard it, but Charles Oakley I'm pretty sure he's promoting a book. I don't know exactly because people aren't really saying, but I'm pretty sure it's for a book. Because it's basically, I'm pretty sure it's for the same book tour where he was calling Patrick Ewing off a couple of weeks ago, like a month ago. But Charles Oakley recently said that Giannis wouldn't be, if he played in the 80s and 90s, he would come off the bench because he doesn't have a jump shot. And if he tried the Euro step through the lane, they'd knock him on his backside. I'm not going to say I disagree with him not with the Euro thing with the Euro step thing, because that's just something. Though they probably, a lot of defenders back then wouldn't let you do that. You probably would catch a ball. Not saying that would be the right thing to do or a clean play. It would definitely be a foul still regardless. But I don't think it's fair to say that Giannis would come off the bench because I feel like coaches would just fit his play style to fit that era and that time of play. And I don't know if Charles Oakley has been paying attention, but Giannis has developed a really good mid-range post-up fadeaway jump shot.
Yeah, his mid-range actually appeared, unlike the three-pointer that people kept trying to give him for years. But I just don't get the whole angle, because I think it was probably 3 weeks ago, Tracy McGrady said that he would be average.
Yeah.
I don't see, Giannis is literally kind of just like Kevin Garnett. He plays a little different because he plays a little differently. Obviously, Garnett was a better shooter. Giannis, you could probably say, handle the ball better distributor. But I mean, Giannis is a high rebounder. He plays physically. He said he wouldn't make it because he didn't have a jump shot, but I mean, he still could play pick and roll and get to the bucket and, like I said, just be an athletic force because you had players like that in the league that could do that. So I definitely don't believe that he'll just be a six man. But I don't get the angle with Giannis or whatever, and I'm not even with everybody else. It's like old players always doing that, because you do have certain old players that have said stuff like that, but it's also a good amount that shows love to the younger generation. It's just as many some people from the younger generation that don't show love to the older generation. So it's really always a back and forth. But no MVP would be an average player in no era.
And I think that's what it comes down to. Right, at the end of the day.
No two-time MVP would ever be an average player in no era.
Right. And like I just think it's a weird comment to make. I'm pretty sure he was asked the question, but it's like, I feel like Giannis is still the easy player to pick on regardless of how he plays or who said how many people say he might be the best player in the league, because not even because the European thing anymore, him being Greek, but I just think people just don't like the way he plays basketball sometimes. I don't think he plays a way that people think is highly skilled or good, and which honestly is kind of untrue.
I probably would have agreed with that maybe about 2.5 years ago, but that just means you haven't been watching his game, because you got to acknowledge that he's legitimately add the mid-range game to his game, legit over the right shoulder jump shot,
and I want to give
over the left shoulder jump shot.
You've always said that's what you want to see him at. Right. That's what he should add.
And you gotta acknowledge that that's what he's doing. He's not just running and dunking like James Harden said about him a couple years ago. He has expanded. I've actually seen Giannis get better. He's still at that point where you actually seen like, damn, he really wasn't doing that a couple years ago, and he's really doing it now.
No, for sure. I know. Real quick, I don't think I asked you this. I think I wanted to ask you, but I didn't ask you. Like I say, of course, we had the NBA 75-year anniversary celebration over the All-Star break. I know who you're gonna say because. Well, I don't know who you're going to say. I know at one point you would have said Oscar Robertson, but out of the top 75, all the players that you can come to mind, because that's a lot of players to try to remember. Outside of Oscar Robertson and Iverson, I know that's not fair, but who's your favorite? Who would you say is your favorite player in the top 75? Of all the players you can think of, you don't have to try to think of.
And then, the easy players is Iverson, KD, Oscar Robertson, but the players that I really like I was just watching some stuff of James Worthy. I think he's super underrated. But what he did, James Worthy would be a bucket in this era, mid-range game, running in transition. Earl Monroe, easy answer. Black Jesus.
Elgin Baylor.
Definitely Elgin, because Elgin was his era of LeBron. But the player that I say that's one I've realized was way more dominant than I thought he was. Well, and Dr. J, gotta say Dr. J, obviously. But a player that I realized is way more dominant than he's gotten credit for being as dominant as he was. I always knew it, but just kind of came to the realization a little more the last couple of months was Moses Malone. He should be, he should be way more like. It's just not a foregone conclusion that you can say Kareem, because Kareem's Kareem and Wilt is Wilt. Mm-hmm. But after Wilt, Moses is right there with all of them. Shaq, Hakeem, David Robinson, Moses is right there. So, and maybe that opens up his top 10 player case, because I said Shaq is the top 10, but I don't know if I think Shaq is better than Moses Malone anymore. But that's a good conversation. I gotta do some more research.
That's a good conversation. I know Shaq can say he got the MVP. He got Shaq and gold. He has the championships, but
Moses, he only got one.
Moses got the MVPs though to back that up.
Does Moses only have one championship?
I think he just got the one with the Philly team.
Yeah, the '83.
Yeah, which those arguments are always funny and always. I'm not one of those people. I don't necessarily hate those top 10 lists that ESPN or Bleacher Report or any of those people put out. I always think they're good talking points. And ESPN, of course, recently put out their top 75 list, and of course the one that everybody's gonna pay attention to, besides the random names and random places, is the top 10. And of course, you're gonna have people who discourage you from reading and telling you it's clickbait and it's just a way to get engagement, which everything is when you do media and content. Yeah, that's besides the point. But those lists are always fun because at the end of the day, it's subjective. Everybody's opinion is different. I know you had Shaq in the top 10. I said we could take Shaq out of the top 10, but that was for Steph Curry. Even though to your credit, because I don't remember when you did it, but you have done it on our shows, one of our shows where you basically went down Moses Malone. I'm pretty sure it was our top 100 players list. No, our top 10 in every position list. That's when you did it, and you basically went down Moses Malone, credentialing anybody else. Moses, they would be a top 10 player. Honestly, top 5 of their position. So I love the list. I'm not going to necessarily pay too much mind to it. I'm not going to get into any overextended arguments about them. I like reading them. I like seeing where somebody else placed these players, because even with me and you, our top 10 aren't going to be the same.
Right.
Like, our top 5 aren't going to be the same. So I don't understand why when you see it from SportsCenter or Bleacher Report, it drives you into a carnal rage that make you want to go commit road rage or something like that.
Yeah, because I just don't get why you think it's such a bad thing that I got this 3 times MVP ahead of that 3-time MVP. I mean, they both got the same accolades. So, as long as you don't got, like, Dirk as the best player of all time, we know he's a top 25 player.
Right.
But it's like, once you're in the top 5, top 10, all your stuff is the same.
And stop bringing
Except
up,
for Jordan. Jordan's above everybody.
And stop bringing up role players to do the comparison thing. I know the one I've been saying, because of course Isaiah Thomas, we finna got rid out of his son, so I'm just talking now. But Isaiah Thomas, of course, went on Sports and everything. I see everybody making their jokes about it, about how once LeBron is number 1 in scoring and he's probably gonna finish top 10 and top 5 in rebounds and assists. He is the consistent GOAT. But everybody's like, what about Kareem being top 2 and what about him being number 1 and then top 5 in points and rebound? Karl Malone, the same thing, being top 2 and top 5 in rebound. Just not just something you can say because this player does it and that's the player y'all choose to like and choose to praise. Not saying there's nothing wrong with that because that's your opinion, bless you. But there's other players who does stuff like that who y'all now automatically making the GOAT. I hope nobody has Karl Malone as their GOAT, though. Let's just say that first and foremost.
Yeah, people just stop asking Isaiah because he's just going to use all his opportunities to hate on Jordan anyway, so there ain't no point in talking to him about it.
No.
He don't even believe it's LeBron for real, but he can't say it's himself.
Right.
So that's who he want to say is the best player.
But other than that, you got anything else?
Nah, just as always, appreciate all the listeners. You can find us anywhere podcasts are available. Just search the Hoopers Pod. We on here every Monday, 3 o'clock on Nothing But Net channel through the Dash Radio app. And then every Wednesday, 12 o'clock, catch us for the Hoopers afternoon session on our Facebook page. On the Off the Ball Network Facebook page, our YouTube page, and our Twitter page. And just make sure you go to the YouTube, subscribe to the page. Just search the Hoopers Pod on YouTube. And that's it.
All right. John W.
Fresh X.
This is the Hoopers Hour on Nothing But Net Radio, presented to you by Dash Radio.